One second, let me just switch some things around here. Okay, I think I have it right. Okay, so there's this great book, which is very heady, and I've not read the whole thing. Phillip Sheppard is a wonderful, I don't even know really how to describe him, but he's written a book called New Self, New World, and kind of exploring a lot of principles around how our inner work can really cultivate a beautiful society if we allow things to move forward. So in regard to body, mind centering kind of realms, one of the things that he talks about is the difference between rules and principles. And I explored this last summer when I was in a workshop with Donna Fari, and I'm currently in a online workshop with her again, and I was reminded of this this morning, and it made me think back to a lot of what I learned from Phillip Sheppard last summer. And the idea of rules versus principles obviously affects our yoga practice, but it goes way beyond our yoga practice too. It can really be looked at from society, not just an individual. So when we have rules, we tend to have a funnel, you know, where all possibilities kind of narrow down to one pathway. Think of like, you know, pedestrian traffic. Everybody, you know, kind of funnels into one thing. And there's some good in this. You know, rules aren't necessarily a bad thing, but it definitely limits the possibilities. And that's the goal of rules, is to restrain, to have restraint on human behavior, to give us very specific ideas of how we're supposed to think, move, act, be. And then principles are very different. It's exactly the opposite. So instead of having a funnel that kind of narrows us down into one choice, the word principle, the Latin root of the word principle, means beginning. And it's really the beginning of a funnel where you have a principle, and out of there can springboard many, many possibilities. Limitless forms of integration can happen from one principle. And this, I think, is very powerful in our yoga practice. When we follow a rule, like turn your foot out 90 degrees in triangle pose, you know, I mean, pick any little rule that you've learned about asana practice. And if you adhere to a rule, if you kind of glue yourself to a rule, you narrow not only the possibility of movement, but the possibility of knowing yourself, of opening yourself up to creativity, to play, to sensation. And this really is a shame, right? That we can limit ourselves in this way. So one thing about rules is that because humans are complex, both in our bodies and the way we move, as well as our interactions with each other and our thinking, when we create a rule, often a rule needs another rule, which needs another rule, which needs another rule. Because we are so complex, if we narrow ourselves down, you know, we're busting at seams a little bit. Whereas a principle is just the opposite. Usually when you find a sound principle, it's in its most simplest form. So you think about wisdom of the ages that we've, you know, learned through all sorts of ways. Usually it's like a simple nugget. It doesn't mean it's easy to enact in our lives or in our bodies, but usually principles, when they're really honed, are extremely simple. And then we can springboard from that into limitless possibilities of what that might look like following a principle. So in our yoga practice, you know, so an example of this that Phillip Sheppard said is a traffic circle in the Netherlands somewhere. I don't remember the details, but the idea being it was kind of a difficult intersection where a lot of deaths had happened, traffic wasn't flowing well, pedestrians, all this. And they had an experiment where instead of putting all rules of like green light, red light, yield, all this, they took away everything. They made a naked intersection where there was no rules of any kind. And what they found that happened was that people had to pay attention, that oftentimes rules can make us fall asleep because as soon as we're like following the rule, I know what I'm doing, I can go on autopilot. Driving is a perfect example of this. But if we don't have a rule, we have to open ourselves up to all possibilities, and we have to steer. Our compass has to come from something much more integrated. Principles are these harmonic integrating forces. So what they found in this naked intersection is that accidents lessened, death toll went to zero, and for those of us who are used to rules, that's terrifying. I don't know about you, but like I go through the roundabouts near Lowry sometimes, and I have just a little bit like, okay, we're going to just do this, right? But what happens is that you become alive. You become much more aware when you're driving through a roundabout than when you're stopped at a red light and you go and you follow the car in front of you. And sometimes you're not even paying attention if the light turned green. You're just following. So when we're in our practice, this concept of principles can be very helpful for us to learn how to move freely based on what we are capable in the moment. So we can shed the layers of my body must look this way, or I must do this in order to achieve this posture, and even let go of the posture altogether. Like, why have a goal of a posture? And instead turn into the principles, which I talk a lot about. They're interwoven all through the Yoga Sutra and through our practice. Yielding is one of the we're going to work a little bit with that today, but following the breath, yielding, having energy move from the center outward and back in again, aligning joints so that there's joint congruency. I mean, there's so many things. Finding sattva, that sense of equanimity instead of the push-pull. There's these deep principles that we work with in our practice that have nothing to do with how flexed our knee is. And this is really where the deep work of a practice lives, and where the fruit of a practice can extend way beyond your mat. When you cultivate this harmonic resonance with a principle that can extend into your interactions. So I think our world right now needs a lot of guidance from principles instead of rules. We're seeing breakdowns of rules that have been built up that don't serve us. And what are we going to do with that? And so the last thing I want to say is sometimes when we lose rules, when we lose our adherence, our allegiance to following a rule blindly, it's scary, because we don't always trust our own innate ability to follow a principle instead. So if this happens to you in your practice, work with this. So if you're like, oh, I wish you would just tell me what to do. I wish I knew what to do in this pose. Can you turn inward and instead listen to that interoceptive capacity of knowing your inner realm? Cultivate that so that the answers are self-given instead of someone else giving them to you in your practice. Okay, so let's close our eyes and take a moment to drop out of the mind and come into the body. What has your morning held so far? How is your sleep? How is your body feeling today? So just go inward and check in with yourself. And do a little body scan, body weather report. Noticing, is the mind, kind of high? Are you able to drop into the body and release the thinking? Is it difficult? How is your breath? Is it a rhythm that is fluid and steady? Is it feeding you, or are you denying the relationship with your breath a little bit? Even sitting here, are you able to come into some yielding? And if that's an unfamiliar term to you, it's just this sense of balancing between giving yourself to the earth and having just enough tone in the body to feel the rebound from the earth. So we're not collapsing and surrendering completely. There's enough tone in the body to receive the upward pranic flow. And when we yield, we breathe. And when we breathe, we yield. See what it feels like to relax through your face, softening little hidden tension spots that only you know where they live. And are you finding things as we begin to move in our practice in a moment? Is there something here that you're noticing that maybe is having a difficulty being free or a little hidden from your view, a little amnesia in the body? Are you nursing somewhere in you for support and protection and nourishment? So kind of discover, what is it that you want to play with? What do you want to explore in your practice? So let's place our hands together at our heart and just come into this state of centeredness as you feel the palms come, as you feel the eyes center in toward the third eye, as you feel the breath in the center of the body. Just come into an intention. What is it that you're working with? What principle are you kind of nourishing? Let's release the hands and let's come onto our back. Okay, so lie down. As you come onto the floor, take your time. Do you want your knees bent? Do you want your legs straight? Do you want your arms far away from your midline? Do you want them close? What's happening in your body today? And how do you feel different lying on the floor? How is your relationship with the ground, with gravity, with space? So see if you can interplay these forces of feeling the ground, feeling the effects of gravity, and feeling spaciousness. Allow your breath to help you. And then when you're ready, start to discover a little bit more forceful movement. So stretch the arms overhead. This inevitably makes me want to yawn. I don't know if that happens to you as well. So stretch the arms, hook your fingers, stretch the right side, stretch the left side. Just enjoy the invigoration of waking up some musculature in the body. And then bring your knees into your chest and rock around a little bit. And just sensing into the stability across your sacrum. Feel how broad your pelvis is. So rock maybe even a little bit more from side to side so you can really feel the broadness of not just your sacrum, but the pelvic bones as well. And then draw the knees into the chest and let's pull the knees apart from each other and back in. So just finding this sense of integration in the hip joints. So what does it feel like in your hip joints? Are they moving freely? Is the ball and socket, can you visualize the ball and socket of your hips? Are they moving freely? Or are there little snags or pulls or tension spots along the way? How is your left compared to your right? All right, and then right knee into the chest, left leg long on the floor. Wake up the feet a little bit, so stretch out the bones of the feet, wiggle the toes, anything that feels good to wake up the lower legs. And notice what it feels like to have some waking. Do you enjoy it? Does it feel good to have your feet wake up and be a little bit more aware and alive? Can you have that sense of integrated awareness? So bring the left knee into the chest, inclusive awareness. What does it feel like to not exclude any part of you that you're feeling right now? So a lot of times this, body amnesia that we can get when we tend to not move much, or we have lockdown in certain parts of our body for whatever reason. Sometimes just the simple act of including those parts of the body in your mind can do wonders for helping tension. Release your leg down, stretch your arms,
One more time. This time, just a big full breath in. Squeeze all your muscles. So squeeze anything you can find. Scan from your fingers to your toes and squeeze along the way. And then go ahead and bring your knees into your chest. Pick up your head. Hug in. Let's starfish the body. Spread your arms and legs wide on the floor. Send energy from the center of you outward to your limbs. And then bring it home again. Chin up. Do that one more time. Open your body out. And bring your body in. So that can look like any kind of way it wants to look. You don't have to have your arms out or up. Any type of expansion works. All right, let's roll over onto our side and come up onto our hands and our knees. Okay, so as you find your way into some cat-cows, pay attention. Is there any part of your spine, your vertebrae that is a little absent from your view, or you have bound for whatever reason? See if you can move quickly, slowly, however it feels most freeing for the body. Remember that the breath integrating with your movements, this is for sure a principle of our yoga practice. When we breathe, we are more integrated. When we breathe, we have more capacity to cultivate interoception, the inner knowing, the inner sensing. So try it for a moment. Hold your breath and do a cat-cow and just notice what's missing. All right, swirl things around so you can move through your shoulders, move through your hips. Any kind of movement that feels nice. So just let your body start to open and be free. Forget about what you should be doing and instead follow the pathway of your breath. Follow the integration of your spine with your shoulders, your spine with your head, your spine with your pelvis, your spine with your ribs. And then stretch back towards child's pose. Drop weight down into the pelvis. Put your arms in any comfortable place. What is going to give you a sense of that inner world that child's pose gives you, the drawing in upon yourself? Can you rest the eyes? So you don't have to have deep flexion in hips or knees or arms overhead in order to get that inner space. Really, it's about melting the eyes, letting the skin on your face fall a bit, dropping the brain into the forehead bones. Take a breath. Let's walk the hands over to the left side of the mat. Feel the ribs open on the right. Drop in. See what kind of weight you can find here. How is your breath integrating into the posture? What does it feel like to breathe deeply through that right side? All right, let's come back to center. Walk the hands over to the other side. Relax the base of the skull, soften. Drop some heaviness into the hips. Doesn't matter how flexed you are, but ground yourself as best as you can. Feel the spaciousness in the side body. All right, then come back to center. Come up onto all fours again. Inhale, lift the arm up in the sky. Exhale and drop that shoulder down. Move the shoulders away from the ears. See what it feels like to have your head in just the right spot. So experiment with where your head feels most comfortable, where your neck feels most soft. Take the femur bones back. Find the length of the spine again and breathe deeply. And then inhale, reach that arm all the way up to the sky and place your hand down onto the ground. Second side, deep breath, exhale, and slide that shoulder under. Have a little pressure if you want with the hand on the floor. How does that give into the earth, translate into your ribs and into the breath? And then inhale and reach that arm all the way back up again. Place the hand down onto the ground. Find dog pose. So spread out through your hands, spread out through your feet. Take your time here. Pedal out your feet. Have some zing through your legs if it feels good. Feel free to bend your one knee and straighten and lift the other. Just find any kind of movement that's going to get you in your body. Can you explore and know for yourself what kind of alignment works for you? So do you need to bend your knees at all to feel your spine growing? Do you need to climb forward a little bit with your shoulders to let them have more support instead of collapse? Is your heart integrating into the body and lifting toward the pelvis? So the shapes can look very different, but the feeling can be very uniform and harmonic. Okay, so are you feeling harmonic in the body? Is the breath moving through you? Can you relax the eyes and the jaw? And then let's walk our feet forward and come into Uttanasana. The knees can bend as much as you want to. Have the principle of a long spine come first before the tyranny of trying to straighten your legs. So who cares if your legs are straight? Feel the expansiveness of your spine. Relax your head, let it bobble around a little bit. Inhale for a halfway lift. You can hold the tops of your thighs so now your legs do have room to straighten. Lengthen the spine as well. Then exhale and melt back down. Bend a lot so that you can get your hands right underneath your feet. And you can walk your feet as far apart as you want or as close as you want. Try to get your toes all the way up to your wrists. And then don't worry so much about how far you go in this, but lift the sit bones and lift the heart forward. Just getting a little bit more extension through the backs of the legs. The knees can stay deeply bent. Lifting sit bones, root into the feet, and then relax and melt. Come out of there with your hands. Bend your knees, either push up or round up, whichever feels best in your body. Reach the arms to the sky. Remember, if you ever get dizzy on the way up, first of all, make sure you're hydrated before you practice. Secondly, chin tucks, hands compressed, and you can even cross thigh over thigh and squeeze. All those things will help lift your blood pressure. Bring your breath, lift your arms when you're ready, open the chest. How does it feel to open the chest? Where do you want your arms to be? Is it more comfortable for your hands to be close or far? Experiment with the sensations in your shoulder joints. And then exhale and take a big dive forward. Relax the head. Bobble it around a little bit. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Is it getting easier? The backs of your legs starting to open a little bit. Take your right foot forward and your left foot back. Blocks are nice if you have them or want them for a lunge. Okay. So bringing the foot forward. Hands are on the blocks or the floor. You can even have your hands on your knee. So go whatever height is best for your body and let's move and breathe. Squaring the hips, dropping the head down, and bending the knee, chest moving forward. Back leg is straight. So just go back and forth. Explore the whole back line of your front leg all the way through your spine. Explore the whole front line from your sternum through the hip flexors all the way to the foot. Just back and forth, opening up the body. What are you enjoying here? How is the breath landing in your posture? Do you have trouble with breathing? Do you forget to breathe sometimes? Or do you kind of guard the breath and live up in the upper chambers? So maybe this is a principle that you need to work with to really hone your attention to how you're breathing in your practice and let go of the practice itself. So even if that means you end up, coming onto your knees and just breathing for a moment instead of doing a posture, this is better for you than just plowing forth with no breath because we're supposed to be doing something. Okay, so this is part of that returning the autonomy of your practice back onto yourself, trusting yourself. Inhale and rise up if you're wanting to do that and see what it feels like. Where do you want your arms to be? Experiment with different vectors of movement for not only your shoulders, but for how your breath is cultivated in the pose. Always make sure that your joints are integrated into the body. Let your knees plug into the pelvis. Feel the sense of whatever your arms are doing, that you're having the humeral heads plug into the shoulder blades. Feel a sense of length and space. How is your breath? And then let's bring our hands. We're gonna come to a twist. So either hand on the block or the floor, or you can bring your forearm to the outer knee. There's so many variations of a twist you can do. You can bring your palms together. So find what makes your body feel best. So this is your ability to trust yourself instead of what someone's telling you to do. Hug into the midline with your legs so you're stable no matter what you're choosing. How's your breath here? Is your chest broad? Are your collarbones able to expand? Do you feel your shoulder blades on the back? And then release the hands down onto the floor or blocks. Back foot comes forward. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt yourself back down. Let's climb up one more time. Push off your feet. Do you want to round your back up or straighten your back up? Inhale, reach the arms to the sky or to the sides or wherever you want. If you're feeling comfortable, cactus open the chest. And then exhale and melt forward again. This time our left foot is forward and our right foot is back. Blocks are nice if you have them or want them. And let's start moving here. Such a great place to start feeling movement with breath. Doesn't matter where you're breathing, just that you're breathing. How is your breath integrating? Are you letting your ribs move? Is your pelvis able to move through your breath? All right, let's find our way into a lunge. Remember, you can always put your back knee on the floor if you need a little support. So try to back away from the ego driving your postures and let the breath be the leader. Inhale, reach the arms to the sky or out or anywhere that feels best in your body. Drop the shoulders away from the ears. Feel the chest broaden and open. Feel the exhales come all the way out, integrating your core on the exhales. And then when we're ready, let's find our way into a twist. We can bring the forearm to the knee, the elbow to the knee, the hand on a block or the floor, however twisting works best for you. Especially if your hand is down, make sure your thigh bone of the back leg isn't sinking. See if you can have a little rebound of lifting the femur bone up toward the sky, integrating the support of our legs, finding the midline. How's your breath? Twists inherently kind of chop up the breath a little bit. So give yourself over to your breathing. All right, and then let's go ahead and come out of there. 2 hands on the ground, step back to a plank. So as we find a sense of deep stability in a posture like this, notice if you're filled with propping, if you tend to push really hard with your hands into the floor, is there a place for you to integrate some melting along with that push? How is your breath? Can you feel the shoulder blades slide down, that scaption feeling of hugging the shoulder blades onto the ribs? Now let's put our knees down onto the floor. Very slowly lift the heads of the arm bones away from the ground like they're magnets repelling the floor on the way to the floor. Take a breath, cobra pose. Exhale and melt back down. How's the integration of your body? Let's find it first before we come back up. So put your head on the floor for a moment. Feel your center body. As you exhale, can you engage through your core, your deep core? Are your legs strong? Take a deep breath and lift up again. Try not to overcompress the back. Exhale and release toward the floor. Any back bend of your choice. Maybe you want to go wider. Maybe you want to come all the way up into up dog, only hands and the feet on the ground. So find the back bend that feels best, and then eventually come onto all fours. All right, so experience some swirls here. You can move through your pelvis, your shoulders, maybe a cat-cow. Explore what's going to make your back feel nice and neutral after back bending. Deep breaths in and away. And then as we come to dog pose, see what it feels like. Do your shoulders like this pose or no? Do you want to try bringing your hands a little closer toward each other or a little farther away from each other? So experiment with the sensations of what feels most supportive. Can you feel that your bones are aligning, that you're supporting yourself through the lines of force instead of just holding muscular strength? Feel anything you need to in the lower body. If your knees need to bend in order to hug the hips, hug the knees into the hips, do that. Can you integrate the limbs into the center body? Integrate humerus bones to shoulder blades, femur bones to pelvis. How's your breath? All right, let's walk our feet forward. Come into Uttanasana. Fold a little bit. Inhale for a halfway lift. And then melt back down. Climb up. And just notice with a little bit of movement that we've, now warmed up our bodies fully, how do you feel? So close your eyes and just sense into the integration compared to when you started your practice. Are you more embodied? Are you a little more connected with the breath? Or at the very least, are you connected to the ways in which you restrict the breath? So part of learning to breathe with this principle of letting the breath move you is learning when we don't let the breath move us, when we have those blocks, and we all have them at different points for different reasons. So just studying those and starting to melt those is so good for the integration of our breath. So close your eyes for a moment and let's explore a little bit of our yielding. So can you feel gravity as a friend instead of something to resist? Can you feel that you are integrating to the ground, that the earth is there? And then what kind of rebound can you find? Can you find the least amount of effort needed to tonify the body, to feel that sense of integration, completeness where you are in relationship with the earth instead of trying to push off the earth or collapse into the earth? So experiment with what that feels like. And if you struggle with it, unlock your joints. Unlock your knees. You can even take your legs a little bit further apart. Have some unlocking. Have some unlocking of the diaphragm. Let the breath drop. So this sense of a bottomless breath, that the breath can go all the way to the soles of the feet, like you have little mini diaphragms in the arches of your feet that breathe into the earth. Are you afraid to let your belly go? What does it feel like if you just let your belly go so that the diaphragm really can drop? Once you have the feeling of drop, feel the energy of lift. Okay, so which is easier for you? Do you tend to easily sink but have a little harder time with the rebound and the tonifying the body? Do you have a much harder time sinking, but you're real good at bouncing off the earth? So just see what integration feels like, that we're not swinging the pendulum either way into that rajasic or tamasic energy, but right there in the middle in that sattvic balanced state. Deep, full breaths in and out. If you struggle with integrating the core and feeling that tonifying effect, try breathing out through pursed lips with a, and this will integrate a lot of your core stability so that your rebound from the earth isn't just a lock of the knees and a push off the earth. Experiment with giving the bottomless breath over to the earth, like a gift that you're giving to the earth. And then receive the tone that the earth can give us, like a struck chord on a guitar, like a harmonic tone that can move into the body. So even if you're like, what are we doing? Can we please just move? Try your best to cultivate yielding in your life. This is a really important principle to work with in our practice and in our lives. So do your best to integrate as much as you can, even if it's boring or difficult. Stretch the arms to the sky. Do you still have the ability to bottomless breath and yield? Do you still have the tone up through the spine? Melt fully, come forward. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and release back down. Step the left foot back, the right foot is coming forward. Come into a lunge. Find your breath. Inhale and climb up to crescent lunge. Let's go ahead and turn and open up to the side for Virabhadrasana 2. Maybe you want platters in your hands instead of arms out. Maybe you want your hands to be on your hips or palms to your heart. Maybe you want your arms up in the air. Maybe you want the very traditional way. So let's back away from clicking off all the little fine tunements of alignment and see what you find in this yielding. Give your weight into your front leg and then rebound that to give your weight into your back leg. Feel the transmission of force across your pelvis. Find the tonifying effect of that lift off from the earth, but not so much that you bounce. Kind of be like a little bit less taut of a ball, so that when you rebound, there's a little give to your rebound. It doesn't have to be this, strong bounce off the earth. Find your breath. How do you want your hips to be? If you turn the back hip in a little bit, does it give you a little better capacity to feel the transmission of force from one leg to the other? What does it feel like to now sink both feet, to transmit force into the earth through both legs and find that tone through the body? So bottomless breath on the inhale, rebound. Let's go ahead and straighten the leg. Come into triangle pose, tip your body to the side. Blocks are nice if you want a block. So because our leg has a tendency to hyperextend, let's have a little micro bend in there in both knees. What would it feel like if you bent both knees just a little bit? It may feel like I'm not doing triangle pose right, but can you feel the transmission of force from the front foot into the back leg, from the back leg into the front leg a little bit more if your knees are softer? How's your breath integrating into that yielding? Breath and yielding are two peas in a pod. You really can't have one without the other. Shoulders away from the ears. Now feel the difference between, I don't know what you're feeling in your body. You might have tendencies toward collapse, and you might need a little bit more tonification and kind of stoutness in the body. Maybe you are filled with tension most of the day and you need a little bit more softness. So find your happy medium, that sattvic state of balance and equanimity. And only you know that. All right, let's go ahead and come on up and turn your feet the other way. Okay, so we'll come back to the crescent lunge on this side later. Let's start with Virabhadrasana 2. And especially, if you have a hip or a knee issue, your Vira 2 can look just like this. Who says it has to be this really deep thing where your knee has to be over your ankle? So there's an example of a rule, knee over ankle. But no, that doesn't work for a lot of people. Your knee may need to go way before the ankle. So just see what's going to give you a sense of being able to yield in the body. Where do you want your arms to be? Is your chest open for breath? Can you have that sense of being able to transmit force from one leg into the other across the pelvis? Does your back knee need to be unlocked a little bit for that to happen? And after you play with that a little bit, can you play with reading both feet, dropping them in, rebounding up? Find that tone through your spine as you rebound. Maybe the who breath can help you tone your core. All right, and then go ahead and find your way into triangle pose. You can bring your hand on a block or rest on your leg. If you're on your leg, be really careful to not lean on your knee so that you have that hyperextension. When we really discover yielding, it's like going in the roundabout. You have to pay attention the whole way, right? So there's no collapsing where I can just get lazy and lean on a joint and then not have to think in that part of my body. So do you do that? Is there any place that you lean and lock so that you don't have to be thinking in that part of you. So try not to let the body mind be lazy, let the body mind be active. Open the chest. Do you need more invigoration and prop? Do you need more surrender and release? So find your sweet balance for this pose. Are your knees unlocked enough to feel the rebound, to feel the give into the earth and the rebound away? All right, let's go ahead and come on up. Turn to the front of your mat again, or maybe now you're at the back of your mat. So come into crescent lunge with your left leg forward. Maybe your arms lift up. Maybe they go out. Maybe they're somewhere totally else. Find your breath. Integrate into the center line and midline. Find the legs. And then when you're ready, go ahead and release your hands down to the floor. Step back to a plank. Finding your breath. Shoulders are away from the ears. What does yielding look like here? Can you yield into your hands? Can you feel the rebound forces? Are you so locked up in tension that no breath can move? Find your balance. Full breath on the exhales to integrate the core. Put your knees down. Imagine the heads of your arm bones are magnets repelling the earth, so they resist coming down. Sometimes restraint is good, okay? So it's not that everything always needs to be free-flowing. Restraint can be very supportive. And then exhale and melt back down. Okay, one more time for a back bend. Feel the chest open. Exhale and release the chest toward the floor. Come back into child's pose. Settle the hips for a moment. Relax here. Notice what feels good, what feels bad. Maybe you don't want to go back all the way just yet, and you'd rather be on all fours doing some movement. So sometimes deep flexion after a back bend feels really good for some people. Some people, they need a little, a pit stop along the way. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Okay, let's come up to dog pose. Lengthen through your side bodies. Feel your feet. Open up the body, mind in your feet and in your hands. Give your intelligence over to where you're touching the earth. Feel the yielding into the earth and rebound that through the spine. What are you giving to the body? How is your bottomless breath in this posture? And then walk your feet forward and come into a wide squat. So the feet are at the mat or maybe even wider than the mat. And we're going to come down to squat. So your squat can be high or low or anything in between. Find your breath. Put your arms where you want them to be. Open up the intelligence of your feet again. Spread out the bones of your feet. Draw the femur bones back. Feel the shoulder blades move down the back. Deep breaths in. Deep breaths away. Give yourself to the earth. Rebound from the earth. And then go ahead and stand all the way up. Arms to the sky. Take a breath. If you're dizzy, make one of those things happen where you squeeze to the midline. And when you're ready, everybody bring your feet back towards center. Palms coming to your heart. Pause here for a moment. Notice if you lock your low back naturally or if you lock your knees naturally. If you're just habitually standing, where does the body intelligence get lost? Okay, come into your own personal roundabout instead of your stop sign so that you're really feeling where things are flowing. We're going to move into our right foot, bring our left knee up in the air. Find your breath here. We're just going to hang out here for a moment, getting used to some balance. Hug the hip in, feel the length of the spine. Deep breaths. We're going to flow with a little bit of movement. So bring your arms to a cactus if that's comfortable. Don't worry if it's not. You can bring your arms into any different plane. Take a deep breath. We're going to open our cactus leg and arms. Exhale. Coming back. Now pay attention. We're going to turn to the side. Going left, cactus left. Exhale, back to center. Everything cactusing open.
Exhale, coming back. So now we're following some rules, right? We're going in a direction. Have you stay with the yielding, even though you have direction of where you're going. One more time through both. Open things up. Bring it back to the midline. Keep breathing, keep yielding. Back to center. Put your foot onto the ground. Inhale, arms coming up. Exhale, arms coming out wide and down. Feel as if you're going to jump. Okay, so you can even do some jumps if you want to. Just very kind of. You don't have to go. No, we're not going to jump really high. But just get the sense that this is yielding, giving yourself over to the earth. And if you're not a jumper, maybe you're a bouncer. Just letting the knees bend and feel that relationship of give and take, give and take. And now we're going to stand on our left leg, bring the right knee in, hug that hip in, make sure your knee's not locked out. So a common way, put your foot down for just a moment, a common way where we lose our body intelligence and get lazy in the body mind and don't pay attention at the red light kind of thing, is we either push our hip forward and lock our low back and lock our hip joint, or we stick our hip out to the side and we lock this way, or we lock our knee and hyperextend our knee, or we do a combination of all of that. So notice where your tendency, if you're just kind of standing on one leg, where do you lose integration? Okay, so let's find integration. So the knee is soft, the bottomless breath is going down to our arches, the hips integrated. We're feeling the rebound from the earth like we were jumping. Take a deep breath. Lift the arms maybe up, maybe they don't go up. And we're going to open out to the side. Can you still stay with a soft knee that you're standing on? Okay. Integrate back to center. Turn to the left. Make sure you're breathing. Stay integrated into the yield. This is difficult. I find it difficult to stay in the yield when I'm doing this. And just keep moving, flowing into the twist and opening back up. How is your standing knee? Let's do one more for kicks. Deep breath, twisting. How are you breathing? Where are you inhaling? Where are you exhaling? It's all good no matter what you're choosing. And then let's go ahead. Bring the knee back to center. Put your foot down onto the ground. Same thing. Integrate. Two legs. Okay. Take a deep breath. Come back, close your eyes. Loosen the knees. Okay. Stabilize your core with your who breaths. Long exhales out through the mouth. Let the integration of your core be what supports you instead of leaning into a hip or locking your back or locking your knees. And when you have those soft knees, notice if your feet have more intelligence. Now lock your knees, lock your back, lock your hips, and notice if you've lost some of your intelligence. The flow, energy flow is intelligence. Okay. So let's come back. Soft knees, heads of the thigh bones moving back. The core is holding the spine instead of the back locking. The bottomless breath going deep into the soles of the feet. What can be done from this place? Any movement is possible. Hopefully you're feeling in this sense of yielding that you're ready for anything. That if someone, and if we were in class, I would have you do this right now. I'd have you kind of push against deep, like have one person's eyes closed where you get tapped and just a gentle push in unknown places of the body. You don't know where it's coming from. So imagine that, imagine I'll be the imaginary hand. So imagine someone's pushing the left shoulder blade forward and how you would respond to that in the body. Imagine someone's pushing the right front shoulder back, how you would respond to that. Coming back to center, someone's pushing into your right hip, sending you left. Someone's putting their fingers behind your left knee, like buckling your knee. How would you respond? Someone's hands are on your collarbones, pushing you straight back a bit. How would you respond? Someone's got their hand on the top of your right ear, making it lift your head go left. So just imagine that you're so fluid, you're like seaweed, that you can respond to any kind of movement. So now I'm not going to say, but just imagine that people are touching you in different places, kind of not a shove where someone's trying to get you off center, but just a guidance of like, go this way, and just see how your body responds. How is your breath? How is your yielding? How are your unlocked knees feeling? And then come back to stillness. And this happens to us all day long. We get the unconscious, unexpected pushes. Now you need to think about this. Now you have to solve this problem. Oh, this comes up suddenly. Oh, what are we going to do about that? How do you respond when something takes you off your center? Can you just allow yourself to keep finding gravity, ground, and space? Take a breath, lift your arms, fill yourself up, exhale and float forward. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Let's come all the way to the floor. Come on to your seat. Okay, so you can grab the edge of a blanket to sit on if you feel inclined to do so. Okay. Take the soles of the feet together in Baddha Konasana, close in, so the heels come close to the body. Lift your spine, find your breath, and maybe lean forward like you're peeking out over a cliff edge, so we're not like diving forward, just a little chest up, peeking forward. Deep breaths. All right, and then go ahead and bring your feet further away from you. So there's a diamond shape between your legs, elbows into the knees. Heart is now extending way forward, a little deeper of a posture perhaps for you. Elbows into the knees. How does the push of your elbows into your knees affect your ability to just let the knees drop? So instead of force, I'm going to push my knees down. How can the elbows or forearms be a guide to tell the knees drop, so that the work comes from the legs instead of from the arms to sink toward the earth? Relax your upper body a little bit, tuck your chin. All right, and then come back up. Undo your legs, come onto your back, bring your knees to your chest, and come back to where we began, circling a few times. We're going to do just some moving bridge poses. So heels come down onto the ground. Feel your feet close to the sit bones. The feet are pointing straight. For most of us, we tend to turn out a little bit. So you might even feel a little pigeon-toed when your feet are actually straight. But once again, here's a rule. So maybe you don't want to follow the rule. Maybe your feet feel a little better when they're turned out or in. So trust your own experience to tell you that whether this is a good or bad thing in the body. Take a deep breath in, lift the pelvis up. Arms are going to come over your head if your arms like that. If not, the arms don't need to do that. Exhale and float back down. If your shoulders are a little wonky and lifting overhead, try different vectors of movement with your palms. Turn your palms up toward the sky or down toward the earth. Try different vectors of movement with the arms themselves. Bring them out or in past the midline, like crossing your arms. There's so many different ways for you to experiment as you lift the pelvis and stretch the arms. A couple more times. Integrate the back bend. Enjoy the feeling in your belly of stretching the psoas muscles, opening the diaphragm, and then relax. Take your block and stick it underneath your pelvis, or a blanket or a pillow if you don't have a block, and low. Don't go super high, and let's just enjoy feet on the floor, some groundedness here. Let the pelvis ground onto the block. Just enjoy some openness across the diaphragm
and the belly to let this unwinding of the breath happen. So if you have found in your practice that your breath is difficult, that you struggle with that equanimity and freedom of breathing, then you try to just let that be your focus in your practice for like 2 months straight. My only focus today is going to be how my breath is moving, and everything else is subservient to my breath. Have you ever radically offered yourself a gift like that, where you, if you find a complex issue in your movement patterning or patterning in general, body patterning based on your history of whatever, have you ever given yourself deep, deep work to just pay attention for a long period of time to try to unravel a history? The breath holds so much history. All right, let's bring the knees into the chest. You can get them off that block or stay on it, whichever feels best to your body. Just give yourself a little bit of flexion. And then we're going to take the block out of there. So feet on the floor, get the block out. Simple twist. Take your breath. Move your hips over to the right, knees up and drop them left. Take your breath and unwind it. See what it feels like to let the breath out, to take it in. Inhale, lift your knees. Let's scooch the other way. Hips go over to the side, knees come close to the chest, and knees drop down. There's always ways to support yourself. If this is too deep of a posture, you can always put a block under or a pillow or something underneath your shins. All right, and then let's go ahead and lift the knees up. And you have a moment to do anything your body's calling for before we settle into Shavasana. So this is your chance to trust the wisdom of the body talking to you. Is there anything your body needs to find rest? Maybe your body's like, nope, I'm totally ready for rest. I'm just going to lay down right now in Shavasana. So whatever is working for you, whatever needs you have, breathe your way there. Deep inhale, deep exhale. Remember, the principle of yielding and the principle of breathing is a springboard for unlimited forms of integration and expression in the body. So when you come to rest in Shavasana, now there's no work to be had, so we can really sense the spaciousness, this integration of ground and gravity and spaciousness. It's limitless. Your breath is limitless in this position. It can expand beyond your body. Your energy flow can expand deep in and deep out. Let yourself fall into the earth and be cradled and supported. The joints are soft and free. The diaphragm is loose to allow the breath freedom. Melt the face, all the hidden pockets that we guard. Can you let them go? Become the breath.
begin to deepen our breathing again. Find yourself filling. Find yourself emptying. One more time, give yourself over to yield into the earth. To feel the integration of a limitless breath. Soft belly. And as you're ready, invite movement. You can move any way that feels right. Eventually coming onto your side and up to sit. As you're seated, see if you can find that yielding here. Just drop your seat. Feel the tone through your body. Give your breath outward. Place your hands together and offer your practice. Send your love, your care, your prayers, your energy outward to another or to many. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.